Hello, everybody. Welcome to Thursday. What's today? Thursday. For most of us, probably, depending on where you are in the international date line. I'm Octini. I am here with ateatree, who is going to get us started with our second day of RIPDebt Not Runs. This is a TMNT Shredder's Revenge, which is a recently released side-scrolling beat 'em up that I love so very much. I actually am desperate to learn the speedrun to this game, so I'll be watching this run very closely to see if I can pick up any tips.
Hey, there
But
are lots of people who'd be happy to teach you. I'd be happy to teach you what I know. The run is, interestingly enough, still evolving.
very cool. But yeah, I'm gonna stop talking and I'm gonna let T-Tree take it away. It's all yours.
Okay, cool. I just want to let you know I do have a little echo of something. I think that's coming through Discord. You let me know if you hear it. Chat, also let us know if you hear it. If it's just me, I can deal with that.
I'm sure that it was my fault. My speakers are playing right into my microphone.
Gotcha.
So
No worries.
I'm gonna have myself muted for most of your run though.
Okay. But first, would you mind going over to the Tiltify page and see if there are any other donations that have tipped the final vote of who we should play as today?
I did check that, and the tally was entirely in favor of April O'Neil.
That's a fine choice. Can't disagree with that.
Select your hero.
Alrighty. Well, let's get to it then.
This is April O'Neil.
Timer's going to start as soon as the 1P character icon appears over my head as April enters the first stage. That'll be in about 10 seconds here. But yeah, we're already getting, as you can see here, the sights and sounds of very much the 1980s TMNT cartoon series. The sound of a Konami arcade cabinet. This game made by Tribute Games, the makers of games like Mercenary Kings and Flint Hook, with a soundtrack by T. Lopes, he of Sonic Mania fame. That being the biggest thing on his resume, but honestly, once you've made the Sonic Mania soundtrack, you can basically punch your own ticket to doing anything, and I won't say no. To a degree, this is basically, like any sort of beat up you'd expect. It's about defeating enemies just as quickly as possible, moving from screen to screen, but as the community has continued to show over and over again over the roughly a year since the game's been out, there are just so many different ways to do that. There's an extent to which it's about hitting the buttons as quick as possible, knowing exactly where the enemies are, but there's also the idea of using certain kinds of moves, and this is techniques I myself don't have down just yet, but using certain kinds of moves will actually defeat enemies faster because they don't bounce off the ground as much. And while there is a system, and you might see me getting some extra hits in on these defeated, kind of darkened colored enemies, it's still a benefit to you to basically keep enemies low to the ground when you defeat them, because they actually get defeated faster. So if you are scraping for every second, that's something you need to remember to do. Thankfully, I remembered to get a little extra hit in there to knock the enemies away and have that bar of ninja power, the light blue bar up in the upper left of my screen, ready just in time for those shield enemies that we just came across there. If they are ready, if they finish walking onto screen or waking up from their initial animations, they will put that shield up and you have to get around behind them to defeat them unless you have a super ready. So thankfully, we didn't have to deal with that. These enemies here, kind of similar, but instead of having a shield, they have a sword put up, and they will block the attack with the sword and then immediately counterattack. So thankfully, we didn't have to deal with that just now. Our last couple of enemies before we get on to the first boss of the game. All right, Bebop, time to shut down this pirate broadcast. Get in every hit we can, because getting those supers does 10 damage, as opposed to most of April's kit. While she does lay on the punches and bunches, most of what she does 1 damage, so getting that 10 damage in a single move is really beneficial, and we'll be looking to do that basically as often as we can.
You snooze, you lose. Big Apple, 3 p.m.
If you played any classic games, especially Turtles in Time, you'll recognize the name of this level. We did change things up just a little bit, and so did the Foot Clan. They've taken the wheels right off the Turtle Van, so it seems like we're going to have to leg it across the Big Apple this time.
What's going on here?
I feel like you shouldn't have to ask that at this point, April. You know when something's going on, it's usually the Foot Clan. Oop. Tried to leave the screen a wave early, but that's okay. Let the second wave grab on here. I'm using, so each character has 3 different kinds of super moves, depending on whether you're standing still, which for April and Raphael is this kind of street sweeper move, whether you are dashing to start the move, or whether you are in midair. The midair one is kind of the most versatile. You'll see us use it in a variety of different situations. Well, went to my muscle memory instead of paying attention to what was actually happening on the screen there. But yeah, so they each definitely have their uses. The Street Sweeper for April and Raphael is great because you can continue to move while using it. And if you start the move while you are in a dash, you'll actually do that spin at double speed. So there are a lot of neat situations where you can use that to get across the screen while continuing to attack enemies. We also have that mode 7 throw, as you just saw there. Not actually what I meant to do, but it worked just fine. We stand back just a little bit from the edge of the screen because if you are too close to the edge of the screen, like in all good arcade games, they will spawn the enemies in a location far away from you. So we don't want to see that happen. Would have liked to ideally... Okay, that worked out well enough. Got the super with the radius around myself up just in time to take down the biker enemies as they came on screen. And I'll use that road cone, which is one of what the game calls hazards, to my benefit, because they can be knocked around. There are some explosive hazards, which you generally don't want to mess with too much if you don't have to, but any of the other kinds of hazards like road cones or fire hydrants can be used as additional weapons. We picked up our first power-up pizza, no, second, I'm sorry, but this one gives us infinite superpower, so we can just keep doing those power moves for 10 seconds. And because of new interactions introduced this patch, we can carry this on into the boss. So instead of having to fight Rocksteady outright, we just get to do this. Ooh, ended just a little bit early, but that's okay. You got the idea. And we'll do that a few more times before the run is done. It's part of why we picked up a little bit more time over older patches. Excuse me there. All right, so this is the first one of our auto scrollers for the run, and I'm gonna quiet down a little bit because the auto scrollers have something extra fun, which is that all of the music tracks in auto scrollers have vocals, and they're just a lot of fun. So get out your dance emotes, enjoy yourself. I'll talk a little bit more about it later. So yeah, not unlike what we've been doing in the levels to this point, a large part of optimizing our speed is getting enemies onto and off of screen just as quickly as possible. You see here that the enemies that spawn there actually only have the one spawn point, so we can just kind of camp them out. But then there's also these new flea enemies. They do each only have 1 health, but if you don't catch them during their initial approach to the screen, they'll kind of tend to go in arcs, and it can make them a little tricky to track down. So ideally, we don't want to have to do that at all. This is this level's boss, the Turtle Tenderizer, but it's just showing up to say, hey, we're nuisances and we don't like you. It's not actually necessary to do anything to them there. You can't do any damage. It doesn't change the fight at the end of the level. It would be neat if you could, but I guess it would be one of the situations where you could potentially do so much damage that it actually wouldn't have any health left on its health bar at the end, and maybe they don't want to have to account for that. As you saw, we actually don't need to defeat those biker enemies outright. We took the bike out from under him. And, yeah, he's not, got any sort of other ride to get around on the subways in, so that was the end for him. Another new enemy type showing up. I don't know what we call those, but, they're not a big deal. They got a couple of health, but ideally you just want to approach them as they come onto the screen. April, with the kicks that do multiple hits, is very quick at dispatching them, even without a super available. Ah, there we go. You saw me get the timing wrong on that one, so... they were able to escape from my grasp a little bit. But that's okay. We'll get our taunt in. Yeah, every time April says any comments or does that taunting, that's if that taunt finishes, my super bar automatically fills up from wherever it is. Because we're playing on a difficulty above chill, which is the basic difficulty, if we get hit with a partially charged ninja bar, it will empty back out. And because we're playing in arcade mode where you can only have a maximum of 1 bar, that means, you know, we just don't have any super available to us until the next time we do enough hits in a row, or we're able to taunt up. Speaking of, let's see if we can get a taunt here. Yeah, I think I started my technique a little bit wrong, but that's okay. Sweep through. You do want to defeat the turtle tenderizer on the right side of the screen because it being a vehicle rather than a character, it has one of those animations where it's going to try to get itself over to the right side of the screen to disappear. And if you defeat it on the far left, it has to slowly drive all the way over to the right before it's done. All right, here's our first set of silhouettes you may not recognize if you, depending on how much or which Turtles series you watch, but we'll get a good look at them in just a couple of minutes here.
Any comments?
There we go. I thought I had the timing wrong there. There's a lot of screens where basically if you taunt, like, as you are getting into position for the screen transition, you'll still be able to get it off before enemies start appearing. So that's one of those things that you can definitely learn to do. Like, hey, I know that if I walk across this brick texture, the enemies are going to start spawning. So you can choose where you move to right there to give yourself just enough time to get things going. Ooh, that whip enemy almost got the better of me there. Have that ready so we don't have to deal with the shield. Ideally, I would like to not use my super here so I can have it ready for right here. Clear that screen nice and fast. Archers only have a 1 health, but they tend to spawn really far away from you. So if you're in a situation where you need to, like, you aren't going to get all 5 of these guys unless you have multiple players. Sent that manhole cover back. Technically I got hit by it, but since I was doing a charge attack which has a single hit's worth of super armor on it, it didn't send me flying back. Got these archers out in time and take care of the axe guy who has a total of 8 health, I think. It's either 6 or 8, I forget. But a super doing 10 is a nice, easy, convenient way to get rid of them. We'll leave our middle archer to do his business because he took care of that wave for us. Ooh, they did not come down at the same line. That's okay. We'll clean up. And not having a super means I can't do a little skip there. Tried to flare jump over the animal stampede, but didn't quite work out that way. Monkeys are friends, but monkeys are also fiends. Those bananas will hit anyone, do knockback, and do 1 damage. So ideally you get them to hit the enemies. Today the monkeys were not feeling it. April, as the woman in yellow, was a very tempting target, it seems like. Send that arrow back and move on. If you enter this screen quickly enough, every enemy will spawn in a big pile on top of each other, and then the bananas will ruin your day again. Go figure. All right, since we let the archer get off screen, do that. We'll take a little safety super for our boss, and we'll speed up 1 more transition. If you don't defeat that enemy, that enemy there, rather than the animal stampeding, are what the screen is waiting on. So by taking him out early, we were able to move on to Ground Check and Dirtbag, the game's first double boss. See if we can get on top of these two and not get hit by either of their attacks. Ah, they went opposite directions. Alright. Still nice to have a super ready. With which I did not hit the both of them. Unfortunate. So yeah, there's two ways to move Dirtbag around once he goes underground like that. You can either move far enough away from him that he comes up after a single attack, like this, or if you stay close to him, he'll go back underground 3 times. That was decent. Ideally, what would have happened is I would have gotten that first super off that I charged while attacking the two of them standing on top of each other, and they would have been close to dead there, but not so bad. This boss, however, can go real bad real fast. This is the sewers, and if you know anything from the sewers from Turtles games, you know who we're going to see in just a moment. But first, we got a few foot to defeat and a few trains to catch. Alright. I'll have to go down to the platform to catch that one. The ideal way to do it here is to defeat each enemy as soon as the ones that show up down on the platform. We basically want to take them out absolutely as quickly as possible, because as soon as the requisite number of enemies is defeated, the next train will come through, and some of the enemies are gated behind their particular train coming in. So if you do it just right, the trains will actually basically be back to back. Didn't see that today, but that's okay. The Mousers, everyone's favorite TMNT arcade game enemy, only showed up in like a small handful of shows in the 1987 series, but they're perfect video game enemies. They're small, they're annoying, they're fast, and they have that bite attack that hopefully we don't see today. Alright, let these two get on screen. Knock away, not ideal, but that's okay. Yeah, some characters that have supers, that standing super, instead of doing like a roundhouse attack, they'll do something that basically they stand in place, but as a result, they have a taller hitbox, and that sort of thing can be really good for situations like that, where enemies are jumping in from above you. But we make it work. The Mouser mechs, which spit out baby Mousers, are now upon us. They can either, every time they jump and land, they will either try to bite you if they are close enough, or they will spit out a baby Mouser, which counts as an extra enemy for the purposes of, you know, getting through enemy waves, getting new enemies on screen. Ooh. All right, we'll have to fight this one while avoiding the... Oh, I said while avoiding, but we made it work in our favor a little bit. That's faster than I would have gotten over here. There we go. Yeah. Didn't get those both down in time, but we got lucky bounces from our Mouser mechs, so didn't get into a situation where, hey, there are too many enemies already on screen and we can't spawn the ones you want. And now, the Rat King. See if I can get off a cheeky super. No, I can't. April has one of these slower taunters in the game, so this sort of thing will sometimes happen. He is invincible while running across the screen, so... And then once he's taken enough damage, once he is unhappy enough with you, he jumps up and you get one of, I think, 5 different patterns of rats. I would very much like to clear off the ads before I have to deal with this again. Too close to the side of the screen. Yeah. I was hoping he'd jump across, but foolish of me. That said, the fact that he only got to go up once is good. That's why I tried to not use anything other than the supers, to just do the damage in the biggest chunks possible, because the number of times he gets hit affects how aggressive he is. So just using the supers there, it is possible to actually zero cycle him, to not have him jump away at all, but it's not very common. So that's about as well as that fight ever goes, aside from not clearing out the rats faster. Anyways, time to head to the mall. See if we can play some games in the arcade. If you are of an age similar to mine, you might actually miss malls. Never really a thing for me, but I get it. I get it. Especially with this music. Probably my favorite song in the game. You saw an instance there of an enemy getting off screen and being more of a nuisance in that way. Little misplay from me, but it's something we are likely to see as we go further on, especially as more enemies have a habit of trying to avoid you rather than face you head on. So we'll try to keep that to be the only case of that happening. These mechs have a total of 12 health, which is why I have to not only super them to start with, but then have something like that rising kick with 3 attacks or the diving kick with 2 hits ready for it afterwards. I managed to take them both out without too much trouble, though we are missing some health. Thankfully, there's a way to fix that right around the corner. Have some trash pizza, you'll feel better. This is not an official recommendation of trash pizza, just so we're clear. Like trashy places, I'll eat a Little Caesars pizza, I'm not above it, but actual trash pizza, I can't recommend. So the game, when you are close to an enemy but not on top of them, will try to reposition you to basically make it so that you can hit something with your super attack. And in some cases, when you're at a particular distance away from an enemy, that'll actually cause you more trouble. So it tried to move me towards some of the enemies, and that basically I only ended up hitting 2 of those pink guys instead of all 3 of them. Let them get the first attack. Try to get up here so we can build another super easily off of those Mausers. Nice, that's what we want. Ideally, we've gotten all 4 of those mechs before any of them even got the chance to attack, but I'm a little rusty, and so I wasn't quite ready for that, especially since you don't get a shadow on the ground or any other sort of tell before that animation starts. And that drop-in is an active hitbox, so it'll hit you if it lands on you. Unfortunately, the arcade games are all closed today because they've been taken over by Tempestra, a villain from season 7 of the original TMNT series, from 2 episodes where Leonardo's playing a video game and the video game comes to life. So if you don't recognize Tempestra, I don't blame you. But if you recognize those 2, who just had a blink and you miss it cameo, that's Toka and Razor from Secret of the Ooze. But yeah, that was that boss fight. So let's go play some Outrun. If you actually want to see something that looks a lot like Outrun, I'll be running that at the end of the day tomorrow, no, in the evening tomorrow. So that's something to look forward to. As is our next level, Roof Running Reptiles. Get another new enemy type here. Thankfully, the pike carrying enemies are not a nuisance for April here. She has the ability to slide under them or take them out with any of her vertical kicks. She's got a lot of good tools for dealing with them, so not a problem. Weather Vane is a tool we can use in our favor. That was supposed to carry a little further. Took those enemies right off the rooftop, and odds are you will see that happen to me at least once during this run. So if you're wondering, can that happen to you? The answer is yes, absolutely. One, two, three. Little swag. Take him out with the Weather Vane. One, two. Nope. Early. That's okay. We'll get the next one. There we go. Ideally, we would have wanted to knock them all back in and keep going. Our obligatory elevator section. Just hitting this control panel, giving myself something to do. Definitely no other ulterior motives there. Very kind of them to provide us 10 seconds of free superpower here, because we will be happy to use it to take care of this giant wave of foot soldiers. And as it wears off, just a few more enemies to go, 1 and 2 HP only, which is nice. And the swag sushi. Quite delicious. Yeah, there's little touches of TMNT love all over this game. Like that particular, like if you pick up a sushi power-up and you're playing as a turtle, you'll hear them go, Raw fish? Yuck. But any humanoid character gets the Splinter quite delicious line instead. Ooh. Whee! Well, I was hoping to meet him at the edge of the screen and defeat him early, but since I got knocked around instead, we'll just take that. Alright, we super to get past that. Would have liked to have beat him out a little bit. Move these over because we're going to make use of them during our boss fight on the next screen. Alrighty. And now, since we've taken down Bebop and Rocksteady individually, they come to make our lives trouble together.
Here's a real showstopper.
You had different knockdown. Ooh, okay, they're not going to bonk each other this time. There is a possibility that they move towards each other when they do those runs, which is be ideal, especially as a solo player, because it gives you some free time as they dizzy themselves up and bonk into each other. This fight not going ideally. Take a little extra damage off him. And that'll do it.
Any comments? What a scoop!
Time for auto scroller number 2. If you're a fan of things like the Transformers movies, G.I. Joes, anything with a solid 80s butt rock feel to them, this might be your favorite song in the game. It is also the second song with lyrics very much along the lines of Stan Bush's The Touch or any other like feel good rock anthem. So I will give you more opportunities to enjoy that as we go here.
Any comments? Any comments?
You know, knowing that all these games are kind of about building a plan to attack each screen and then executing on that plan as not necessarily mechanically, but just as efficiently as possible. This is probably one of the easiest stages to wrap your head around in that way, because you can work with the oncoming girders in that first section. You have these missiles kind of giving you an idea of when the next wave will come up for a lot of the different kinds of enemies here. So like that vertical one there, I knew meant these guys were coming, but I wasn't quite paying enough attention because I was busy describing that, so that's on me. That's okay.
Any comments?
Next we'll have another healing pizza. It's unconfirmed, but I think there's some small benefit in actually taking a little bit of damage in each segment, so you can pick up that pizza and spawn the next wave in a little bit faster. We'll use a little bit of sneaky tech. They changed the way that enemies spawn into screens after the very first patch of this game to kind of preload more enemies, and as a result, the enemies are actually already in the blimp and in a set location. So if you knock them out of that location by attacking it, you can get them all to spawn in a little faster than the game would let them normally by sending them at you one at a time. So we do that here, and then we track them down to their landing spot. And that's the last set of enemies for this wave. And it's the last wave before the boss. So if you need to get a hydration break, stretch, I'm going to do a little bit of that myself. I say get in position, but this is really just a habit of mine. I like to be right where the game is going to put you anyways. Even if you're on top of that spot on this particular level, it's going to reposition you, so don't stress about it. Okay, not ideal. I didn't get to stick on top of him, but he also didn't get to do what we call the Storm Eagle, where after that flap, there's a possibility that he goes up into the air and then he'll basically dash across the screen at 4 different angles that try to intersect with where your character is before he lands again. So the fact that we didn't have to deal with that at all in a marathon setting is very nice. All right, time to head to the boardwalk. More arcade games, right? I love arcade games. If you've ever played this game casually, especially if you've taken Mikey, Mikey is probably the character with the most incidental dialogue for different levels. Like my jokes about playing games at the arcade and you know, being here at the boardwalk, those are all Mikey lines. Like for Coney Island in particular, he'll say, "Oh, dudes, we have to ride the roller coaster." So, just a game that's a lot of fun to watch or experience in any way, even if you're not a big fan of beat 'em ups. And if you aren't, actually, the most recent patches introduced something called custom game toggles, which they kind of make it as though it were dip switches on an arcade board, but you can do things like give your characters infinite lives, give your characters infinite ninja bar. You know, a lot of things that can make the game more fun to play from a casual perspective. And then some that are kind of in between chaotic, like letting multiple people select the same character, which is a neat idea, but makes it really easy to lose track of who's playing who. And then some stuff that is really just out and out evil, like making enemies run twice as fast, making enemies have twice as much health, making enemies do twice as much damage, and making enemies explode when defeated. So there are a couple of speedrunners. The world record holder in almost every category of, or for almost every character for this category, a fellow named Croonin _ and myself both do runs of that mode that we're calling Mania, where all of those make the game harder toggles are turned on. We'll see if we can get that into an event someday. Once we can really wrap our heads around it, that is. I don't think we've actually completed a run of it without using at least one continue. You can see these Psy Soldier enemies, and I wasn't quite ready for any of them, are a real nuisance if you let them wind up, because if they take a non-fatal hit, they will immediately jump away from you at a very awkward angle for you to try to reapproach, and then throw out a fan of size at kind of a 45-degree angle to discourage you from running back in on them. Prize sushi. Is that more or less gross than trash pizza? There we go. If we hit the right part of the hitbox on the initial attack, we can kind of just follow them directly.
Any comments?
Not super clean, but we had the time to get that taunt ready before Leatherhead. You gonna dislike this boss fight, I guarantee. Leatherhead has a lower knockdown threshold than any other boss, so if you are too aggressive on top of him, he will make you regret it by falling down and, yeah, not taking damage from the explosive barrel or other things of that nature. And then once he has picked a manhole cover to go into, he will jump in and out 5 times. And you'll only have those opportunities to get little cheeky supers off while he's busy doing that until he's done. So the fact that he was able to go away once, not completely second time that's ugly. But as you've seen, we can get extra little hits off on him, so we'll finish him off while he's trying to give us the slip. Okay, yeah, no, I can understand the idea of you know, especially sushi left out in the hot boardwalk sun being more gross than. You're right, free pizza is better. Although I guess for me, it could potentially depend on what kind of toppings. I don't know if anybody has any toppings that I don't mean to explicitly start the pineapple dialogue, but you know, if you're somebody who like wouldn't do a hot sauce pizza, I get it. Or if you have certain lines where you consider it like a flatbread or a focaccia rather than a pizza, depending on what's on it, I'd be willing to listen to those arguments as well. Uh-oh. Well, I guess I won't talk any further about pineapple pizza because I don't want to get anybody banned. Moved a little too far, but that's okay. April's move speed being basically the highest in the game, I was able to get over and hit both of the motorcyclists before they got too far across the screen. Nice little relaxed screen. I'll take this one while the missiles hit everything that's not me. Oh, I am not ready for this. I was supposed to have a super up here. Yeah, so these Mauser mechs, when they're doing that arm extension attack or that diving attack, they have their own super armor. And with the arm out attack in particular, they actually, not only do they have super armor, but they cannot be defeated while they're doing it. So they can't be defeated until the arms retract. So that is something we would like to see absolutely as little as possible of. Now that we're back in the storerooms of wherever it is that we are, take care of some extra Mausers they had stored back here. And you know, as people who speedrun, or at least speedrun affiliated, I understand. I imagine you could feel the speedrunners cry out in horror as all of these CRTs are so carelessly destroyed. I would preserve them if I could, I promise. Get our super up while the moving walkway takes us into position. Couldn't. There we go. Got some of our swag kicks working. Technically, it's actually also a time save, just not much of one. Alright, we'll defeat him and bring him back over to the center of the screen, so his drops also come over to the right, so we don't have to go back. Have this ready. Taunt up in a safe place. Dodge that, and we'll take a safety super before moving to the next screen. Oh, that was... Yeah, I should have waited till that started jumping. That would have changed the AI there. Yeah, so you can see what those bite attacks look like. There we go. That was a miss, so I'm going to let the next one spawn in. We'll see if we can get the both of them together. Or it gives me enough time to defeat. That's fine, too. 1, 2, and boat. Nice. Technically a backup strat, but... Alright. Yeah, April also has lots of damage done in terms of camera equipment destroyed, to say nothing of the CRTs and everything else. Last time I ran, the main question they had for playing as April was, where does she keep all those? And I think that's what those cargo pants are all about. Didn't keep Metalhead tied up quite long enough. He was able to do his alternate attack, which is where he goes in and does that little shield up. Ideally, what you want to do is get behind him. Yeah, kind of like that. And then you can get him to reposition himself in just such a way that he basically attacks on the wrong side of you every attack. Waiting to make sure that the Mauser doesn't get in the way of that. Not clean, but we didn't take any deaths, so that's okay. Yes, April O'Neil single-handedly ruined women's clothing for a generation. That's, I don't love that headcanon, but it's yours and I support it. So yeah, as you may have noticed from the end of each of these levels, we've just barely missed Krang's body parts getting transported all over town. And the legs have come over to the Museum of Natural History for some reason. So let's go find out why that is. Our friends from Dimension X are here. These guys are most annoying if you are playing an air-based character like April, because with the big Stegosaurus horns on their heads, if you jump into them and they're not busy doing something else, they will immediately auto-air you. Oh man, we're back. I haven't thought of that in forever. Good thing to be reminded of on a stage like this, though. But yeah, you see we have two different kinds of Triceratons here. The orange Triceratons are the melee enemies. They have a little bit more health. They do have guns, but they're really only likely to use them when they first come up on screen or when they're particularly far away from you. Otherwise, they're more likely to charge like this and then focus on those anti-airs.
Any comments?
Good. Yeah, if enemies aren't quite on, like, there are a lot of cases where enemies can basically be on screen, but depending on what they were doing before they got there, they might not actually be considered active and therefore not vulnerable. So we do have to occasionally buffer a move, hold things back. Probably should have safety supered there, but went for something a little riskier and that worked out just fine. So nice.
Any comments?
Always nice to see one of those little triangle setups work out, because the supers do have a very wide hitbox to the left and the right, but up and down is there's the anti-air. Up and down is a much more narrow hitbox.
Any comments?
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, because we have the Dimension X portal open on this screen, we don't actually need to defeat anybody, we just need to knock them up. And because we had that infinite pizza available to us, and because on the current patch we can carry those into bosses, we're gonna make very short work of Captain Zorax here, who used to be a real nuisance because he has attacks that knock away, he has a gun that you see there, and he can summon enemies. But since we had 8 free seconds of super usage, he's history. Leo actually has the special line for that one. It's good thing we're in a museum, because you're about to be history. You know. It plays like a 1980s cartoon show. It looks like one, it sounds like one, and it has all the nice touches too. Like a lot of the characters, Rob Paulson returns as the voice of Raphael. I believe the voice of Donatello is also returning. I don't recall everything off the top of my head. I actually had the good fortune, the first marathon run I ever did, to run alongside the voice of Splinter, Shredder, Krang, some of the Punk Frogs, the characters who were on the roller coaster in the Coney Island level. He did a bunch of the incidental voices as well as three of the main characters, and that was a lot of fun. Oh, that was a faster end to that than I was expecting. Won't say no though. And that was a slower end to this screen. Ah well. Give and take, such is the way of many brawlers. 1, 2, 3. Cool folks don't look at explosions.
Any comments?
See how many of these we can get taken care of. There we are.
Any comments?
Oop. 1 hit short. Forget these have 4 health and not 3. These are the laser discs. They are discs and they shoot lasers. No one ever accused me of being clever. And that went cleanly, giving us the super for this screen. We'll move to the very bottom here to avoid this giant wall of traps that might be reminding you of the classic Technodrome if you played some of the older games. Ooh, didn't get the flip on everybody here. That's okay. Gives us a chance to charge more of our super for the next time. Alright, good little setup. Move south as I run across here. That charge attack took way too long to come out. Ideally, there would have been a position I could have run to that basically would have had me ready for all 3 of those waves of enemies, but we made it work. We did have the super we needed up at that time. Avoided getting hit, or at least got enough juggles of enemies in fortunate locations. We'll pick this up now. And we have a set series of laser disc drops that, if we do it right, should be able to at least knock up most of them here. So yeah, every character kind of has a different set of moves that they can use to do this flip. And then as you see, once they're flipped, they're vulnerable for a good number of seconds. So in many cases, if your execution isn't right on, you can at least flip one and then come back for it later.
What's up, turtle?
We don't have that same clearance with Baxter Stockman here. Ideally, we'd like to lock him in the corner here. Honestly, I have a hard time being mad at Baxter. He just kind of looks so cute this time around. I think it's the tie and the fact that his gun doesn't look like flesh or oatmeal colored. He doesn't quite have the gross factor that he did in Turtles in Time. But he is quite dangerous if we let him finish summoning those Mousers, because then he'll jump back up into that chair at the top of the screen and a bunch of giant lasers will come in from the left. It'll be a big time loss. We'll have to avoid them. Much better not to have to deal with it. Unfortunately, we failed to stop Krang from being rebuilt, so that's something we have to deal with. As he powers up and disappears off to the Technodrome.
What's going on here?
So the Technodrome is the level we're kind of gonna play most paint by numbers because of the Stone Soldiers. The Stone Soldiers have 10 HP and they basically have super armor all the time. You will see that unless you knock them away like that, basically nothing you do is going to interrupt them. And if you do knock them away, that's not great either, because you want to defeat them as quickly as possible. Yeah, if they're doing that charge, they're not going to stop until they hit you or a wall or possibly both. So we want to see as little of any of that as possible. Not ideal, but it'll work. Again, the orange Stone Soldiers are kind of like the orange Triceratons, and the gray Stone Soldiers are kind of the equivalent to the green ones in terms of like they tend to stay away versus. Let's see if we can get this triangle set up. Run in. Yes, got all three at once. Nice. Not quite what I wanted, and I forgot that I was supposed to use this move. Knock over one. Knock over two. And so the auto targeting there doesn't happen while those Stone Soldiers are still running onto screen. If they'd reached the far right of the screen, the game would have tried to reposition me and put me over. Basically, I would have ended up only hitting one of the two. So by virtue of the fact that I was able to get him as they were coming onto the screen, the auto targeting of that super didn't happen. Thank you for the German lesson. Very interesting. All right, got the lucky assist from a ceiling tile there. Won't say no. Did forget to get some super up, but yeah, and super can be real difficult to gather when you have these enemies rushing through, because you take any hits from them and that'll reset your super bar. Oh, how unkind. I can't say I was expecting the dash being that close to that one. That's okay. We'll slow roll it. We do get a free super right here before our next mini boss in our second obligatory elevator segment shows up. But I'd better play it smart here because I don't have a ton of HP to give. Go. Yeah, I probably could have snuck that last hit in, but I didn't want to take any chances of getting clocked by the other Stone Soldier. Nice. Get an extra hit here. Oh. That's fine. It's workable. Got these two to spawn on top of each other because we came into that screen quickly enough. Nice little time save. Take these two. See if we can super quickly enough. Yes. Nice. That screen has been disagreeing with me a lot recently, but no complaints there. Stand right in between where those two spawn in, so we don't have to worry about them. wait for these two, and then move in just the right ways. Oh no, that wasn't supposed to happen. Still not a bad cleanup. The difficult part of that is actually getting below the two gray soldiers as they come in, so you knock them over to the left and the continued swings carry them. This is Chrome Dome, also known as Great Value Shredder, also known as We Have Shredder at Home. Since Shredder is not in the Technodrome today, I guess he was left behind to do the security detail. We got our Mode 7 tribute. Try not to get hit. Yep, good. I got a super charged up, so I didn't have to try to get off a cheeky taunt with all this stuff flying around. And a nice clean 2 cycle. No complaints. Yeah, there have actually been 2 auto-scrollers so far, levels 3 and 7. And then there's a little bonus auto-scroller right here. The very beginning of stage 14 here is also technically also the same, and we've been using some version of this Donnie enhanced flying skateboard here. So the second auto scroller was an all air level through New York City, so it looked like this, and the original one was across the highway, so the skateboard did have wheels at that point. April, having both a fast move speed and a high jump arc, has absolutely no problem avoiding all those meteors, but we typically play it as a little game between ourselves, especially if you're in a co-op run, to see who gets hit by meteors the least. And if you hadn't noticed, or if you had noticed and I haven't said anything yet, yes, the yellow enemies do use tire jacks. I don't know why they all need them. Like, the first one of them we saw was taking the wheels off the turtle van, so that makes sense, but everyone else, I guess, just wanted one of their own, so. All right, time for one of, if not the very last new enemy, the Pizza Monster, which is exactly what it says on the tin. It is a monster, it is pizza. We try to have the supers ready for them absolutely wherever possible, because as you see, they pop up out of the ground like this, and ideally what they're trying to do is glom onto you, which disables your controls, does damage, and then they can immediately fly away. So no part of that is fun for you as a speedrunner. So if we have that super ready, it is always going to go down on them. Take this ninja pizza here, take the super pizza here. Get 1, 2. Oh, I forgot there was a third one there. I was hoping to have that that spin super ready for these guys, but that's okay. Not a bad pickup. And yes, the lava and or burning pizza sauce is exactly as bad for you as you think it would be. And if you remember from when I described earlier how doing a super gives you a single, or doing a charged attack gives you a little bit of super armor, if you are doing a charged attack and you happen to move or get moved into lava, you will continue to take damage repeatedly, but it won't knock you away because you have super armor. So you can actually KO yourself in about 2/3 of a second from full health if you are standing in the lava. Ask me how I know. There we go. Just waiting for enemies to come into our cone of danger, such as it were. Our nice little Indiana Jones moment there. But no time for references, Dr. Jones. Yeah, especially in the later seasons, TMNT got weird in kind of really great ways. Gave that Stone Soldier a couple of little love taps to keep him and his buddy running in line. Not ideal there. We would have liked to avoid the lasers, but we had the health to give, so it wasn't a huge problem. Oh, did not mean to knock him away, because now I got to run back through lasers. There we go. Because I did it on, I know the standing in lava is bad because I did it on accident during a speed run and defeated myself. It was not my proudest moment. This is Slash, sometimes foe, sometimes friend of the turtles. Basically the TMNT member from Dimension X here. And he is the only character in the game, the only boss enemy that is, aside from Splinter, or Shredder, rather. I always get those two backwards for some reason when I'm running. He's the only other one that doesn't suffer knockdown in any way. So you can basically just lay it on. Just like that.
What a scoop.
Yeah. No, the wiki is mostly up here and in the brains of other Shredder's Revenge runners. It's time for episode 15, also known as the final exam. Now, throw us a little bit of everything we've seen so far in this game before we finally get to face that big old Krang-shaped silhouette at the end of the level. I wonder who the boss is.
Look out.
Oh, yeah. That's ideally what you want to not happen. We get a couple of extra carried hits in the corner here, so we have a super ready without having to taunt for it. And then they are technically vulnerable even when they're in the raised up phase, so we'll make usage of that. Nice. Let everybody spawn in and take everybody out. Sometimes patience is a virtue. Not usually, though. Not in brawlers. Oh, darn it. I don't... Yeah, that's fine. That'll almost work. A little bit of rebalancing. There we go. Avoid the spikes. Would have missed that one, but I turned around and managed it. Every single one of those spikes in the spike field is a different hitbox, which we will potentially be able to use to our advantage a little bit later. Oh, or like that. That one went backwards off the screen and into the active spike hit from this screen. Neat. I won't say that's never happened before, but it's certainly not how we draw that screen up ideally. Take a little safety super. I do this little flip back before fighting these green ones because with most characters standard, for whatever reason, the fourth hit, which would otherwise kill the green Triceratons, tends to knock them up so that they basically face the other way and the shield is facing you. So better not to have to deal with that. Yeah, you see that stone soldier doing himself some damage for me by jumping on the spikes. Good. Okay, that was inelegant, but there we go. Got the super up. There we go. Had to do a little, basically always have to do just a little bit of a reposition on that screen. You do want to knock the first one up because usually what happens by the time you get to this screen is that those pizza monsters do, we just call it a desync, which is basically what it is, but it's possible for those two to jump out at the same time, but it almost never happens. So by getting the one hit on him, we take the relatively short stun and we use it to wait for the second one to come out and position them both together. Ooh, don't want to do that. Good enough. You all come out. Again, because of the strats and the new techniques available to us on this new patch, we are not going to pick up that pizza until we have to. Our heal. You don't have to do that, but if you get off a move that gives you some other kind of movement on the first frame of picking up a power-up, it'll do that instead. So I just got us onto this screen with a little more of the power-up still available. I don't think you're going to teach us any manners, Krang. I'm not sure you know any, but considering we can just do this, I don't think there's any time for a lesson. Unfortunately, it turns out it was all a dastardly trap. You fell for my diversion. I have a surprise for you. I don't know if anybody else had something like that, but I always have to do that along with that line. It's Shredder! Ooh. Well, alright, I've gotten off pattern. Ideally, he can be very much pattern-fed, kind of like Rat King. Oh, and I rolled right into that one. Alright. Gonna assume it's this one? No, it's the back one. Okay. I know which one I'm looking for. Yeah. Usually you're going to use a super to get that. I got a little greedy and tried to chase him down, but we made it work. But, of course, we haven't seen the last of him. There are 16 stages after all, and this was only number 15. In what is quite possibly a tribute to Ghostbusters 2, you might recognize this silhouette if you are an American. And please rise for the Foot Clan National Anthem.
I shall rule the earth with an iron fist.
Here's a real showstopper.
Ooh, this is a nice pattern. Yeah, excellent. I haven't seen a pattern this friendly in a while. Oh, no, okay. We'll take our taunt here. Yeah, there's a tiny little piece of ground at the far right sides here where that slam attack will miss us. See if we can finish it off just in... Oh, nope. The auto-targeting from doing the dash attack. Silly me. Let's see if we can win like this. Nope, not quite. That's okay. Would have been funny to win by throwing an enemy into him. Lost just a couple of seconds doing it that way, but that's all right. We'll mash out a taunt here before we jump down to the final showdown. Big Apple, 3 a.m. Let's kick shell. Friends, compatriots, this is it. The final showdown versus Kevin Nash. So this fight has actually gotten a lot meaner in the most recent patches. They made him more likely to delay some of his attacks, a lot more unpredictable, and this particular billowing flame attack also comes out faster and at different angles. The one concession they gave you is that he's more likely, or that like that vulnerability phase tends to come out faster because everything else he does is faster, and it also means that he's like more likely to only give you one of these dashing sections before he goes into vulnerability. There is a maximum of 3 though, so I knew to expect. That's what we'd be coming up to next. Once he's below 50% health. Oh, that's on me for attacking into him. Yeah, he can do this a lot more than he used to, and it's faster and seeks better than it used to. So as a casual play, this boss is actually, I would say, significantly more difficult, which is neat. You know, there are definitely some people who felt this game could use a more stiff challenge. Well, between that and the custom game modes, I would say they have absolutely gotten their wish. Also, that's time. Sorry, I forgot to say anything, but... Yeah, as the Attorney General of the United States used to tell you at the beginning of arcade games with that splash screen, cheaters never win, and using Super Mutagen is definitely cheating. So, had to put a stop to that. New York can rest easy once more, now that Lady Liberty has been restored to her former gleaming glory. I, Vernon Fenwick, who was not at all scared, can confirm that Shredder has been defeated by the city's protectors, the Green Guardians of Good, the Web Warriors themselves, the Punk Frogs. Sorry, Turtles. Maybe next time. Yeah, if you're interested in learning more about this game, there is a TMNT RTA Discord. A lot of great people there who can teach you. I'd be happy to teach you anything I know. Shout outs to people like Prunen underscore, Falseboo, Nescape Plan, 4N6, who is doing a lot of the same routing work on the gnarly difficulty, which has some fun change ups. Come say hi, or feel free to hit me up anytime if you'd like to know more about the game. Thanks everyone. Hope you enjoy the rest of day 2 of RIP Medical Debt.